When Joseph Smith talked about translating the Book of Mormon, he pointed to divine help.
One of the challenges is we want specifics, and Joseph and Oliver weren't incredibly specific. David Whitmer was. For instance, David Whitmer writes this document called An Address to All Believers in Christ. It's the year before he dies. And in it, he gives a lot of specifics about what he saw. For instance, here's an excerpt. He said, Joseph Smith would put the seer stone into a hat. He would put his face in the hat, drawing it closely around his face to exclude the light. And in the darkness, the spiritual light would shine. A piece of something resembling parchment would appear. On that appeared the writing. One character at a time would appear, and under it was the interpretation in English. Brother Joseph would read off the English to Oliver Cowdery, who was his principal scribe. And when it was written down and repeated to Brother Joseph to see if it was correct, then it would disappear, and another character with the interpretation would appear. Now, some people love that because it's really specific, and other people like it because it favors a tight translation. It sounds like Joseph Smith was being given the precise words that were supposed to be in the Book of Mormon. So when the Book of Mormon says something like there's an infinite atonement, you can have confidence that infinite is the exact word that God wanted there. Other people don't like this because it sounds like from David's description, Joseph Smith was receiving the text directly through the seer stone and not using the plates. And there are some sources that contradict this. For instance, when Joseph was asked about the title page of the Book of Mormon, he said, I translated it from the last leaf of the plates. So that makes it sound like he was using the plates. And again, is there a way to meet in the middle? One thing I would say is David Whitmer was not a scribe of the Book of Mormon. The primary scribe, who's Oliver Cowdery, says the Nephite interpreters were used, but doesn't give further specifics. The other documents I would use to, I guess, complicate the narrative would be what David Whitmer describes sounds like a very mechanical process. The words appear, Joseph dictates them, Oliver writes them down. We have a set of documents, section 6, section 8, and section 9 of the Doctrine and Covenants, which is where Oliver Cowdery attempts to translate. And those documents don't describe a mechanical read the words off kind of process. Oliver, for instance, is told in section 9 he wasn't able to translate because he didn't study it out in his mind, that he didn't ask if it was right. That sounds like way more than just here's the words, dictate the words, write the words down. And so, like I said, I think there's a way to harmonize all of them, and the complexity doesn't bother me in particular, but we have to acknowledge the complexity that's there. And we also have to acknowledge some of the complexity comes from the fact that David Whitmer wasn't one of the scribes. He wrote this down decades later. Again, don't miss the forest for the trees here. They said it was miraculous. If they don't exactly agree on the details, they do totally agree that it was something they couldn't explain naturally.